YouTube! Welcome to the Fantasy Football Perspective. I am Lucas, and welcome to the second off-season episode of a more of a podcast feel to the Fantasy Football Perspective. This is where we're going to talk about everything under the sun related to football, and of course, we're going to try to bring everything back into a fantasy football reality. Some topics today that we're going to discuss. This is the first episode we're doing since the Super Bowl, where the LA Rams defeated the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20. Bengals heartbreaking loss, and we'll get into that game in a little bit. We're also going to talk about the NBA AllStar Game that occurred last night and what the NFL can do to kind of beef up their Pro Bowl. If you had a chance to watch the NBA All-Star Game, it was a very, very exciting game. We're going to dig into some dynasty off-season, start gearing towards some moves that I'm making in some leagues, and we'll talk about trade calculators. At the end of the day's show, I'm also going to interview a special guest, so stay tuned for that, and we're going to get into this now. Hit that intro. So welcome back to the channel. As always, hit that like button. Drop a comment below if you have any questions, or just drop some support below. I love making these videos. I'm trying to shoot out about 1 or 2 a week leading up to the season. As we get closer to the regular season, I am going to start having more content out there. If you guys watched last episode, my stance is still the same in this dynasty off season. When I'm talking about dynasty fantasy football, I'm not going to shoot out these cookie cutter rankings that all these other guys are going through and doing right now, because I personally do not believe you can have any ranking of any football player if you don't know exactly where their landing spot is or how much draft capital that team spent on that player. That is super, super important when it comes to opportunity and just overall, positive direction for that player. Bad landing spots can ruin seasons, ruin careers, and we see that all the time. And I do understand that there are outliers, maybe like, for instance, Elijah Mitchell, drafted behind Trey Sermon, who San Francisco 49ers even traded up to get, and comes out and dominates the backfield. Outliers do happen, but I'm not going to start digging into specific rankings until we get closer to the actual dynasty regular season or after the NFL draft. So, let me start this episode by talking about the NBA All-Star Game and how the NFL can potentially, boost up the Pro Bowl. I'm going to be completely honest. The NFL Pro Bowl is a complete joke at this point. It looks like two-hand touch. You might as well put flags on these guys, let them run rampant around the house, and play tag around the house, because that's what it looks like on the football field. Nobody takes it serious. I do understand there is a risk of getting hurt, but there needs to be incentives to take it serious, or simply do make it flag or two-hand touch and change the whole landscape of the Pro Bowl. Not to mention, it seems like everybody under the sun is a Pro Bowler. Anyone that has just a mediocre season becomes a Pro Bowler. And I do see that throughout other sports too, don't get me wrong. When fans are voting for these players, you do have a likelihood that someone that might not deserve it be into that starting lineup. We saw that in the NBA with Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins having a great year at the NBA, but does he deserve to be an all-star starter over someone like Luka Doncic? Absolutely not. So, we see that. I can't even tell you how many Pro Bowlers the Browns have, and I am a huge Browns fan. That's how much non-attention I pay to the Pro Bowl. So, how do you boost it up? How do you make it more interesting? You got to change the scoring format. You have to. You have to incentivize these guys to play hard, whether that's donating to charity like the NBA did. The NBA had a format where at the end of each quarter, whoever scored more at that quarter, they made it like three individual games, they would donate $300K to the charity of choice. They made the final quarter not timed, but to a specific number the teams had to hit. So they added 24. Like you had to get to 24 plus the winning score after 3 quarters total. So it ended up being like 163. At the end of the third quarter, it was like 137 to 136. So they had to get to 163. First team to 163 wins the game. And that made that fourth quarter super, super enticing. Now, like any AllStar game, the first couple quarters were pretty boring. Looked like a layup lines. He saw Steph Curry shooting threes from the logo, turning around before it even hit anything. That was insane. But you see these guys' skill, out there for the public to see, and that's what people want. We want to see them do what they do and at the highest level. And the NFL Pro Bowl doesn't do that. So we have to find ways to put people in positions in order to make that succeed. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to see like a 7-on-7 flag football game or something like that, where you break up all the Pro Bowlers, they draft teams. The NBA also brought the draft in, where the 2 top leading vote getters draft their own team. You can't tell me that you wouldn't want to see 4 or 5 QBs get the chance to draft 7-on-7 and even let the linemen out there running routes. That takes the contact out of the game, which they don't really go for anyway. And you have these skill positions and lineman chances to run routes and just have a blast. I think that would add so much excitement to it. You play a tournament and the winner gets, I don't know, $300K to your best charity. And people out there would be trying to win. I think that would be awesome, awesome, awesome to see. Just an idea. You have to change it up because it's losing viewership every year. And at this point, it's becoming a mockery to the NFL. It's a joke. It's cool having an all-star Pro Bowl type season. It is quite an accomplishment, but actually the game itself is a complete joke. So find a way to spice it up. That's my recommendation. Make it into like a flag football contest where you have 4 or 5 teams with all the Pro Bowlers. Draft the teams on national television. Break the teams up and watch them go at it. I think that would be awesome. So tell me what you think about that idea down below. Let me hear your idea about that, how to make it interesting, because something needs to happen. Let's transition to the Super Bowl recap, where the Cincinnati Bengals lost in heartbreaking fashion to the Los Angeles Rams. I'm a bystander fan. I'm a Browns fan. But as I talked about last podcast, I do root for a team in the Super Bowl, no matter who's there, or I actively root against the team. I was rooting for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. I think he's a gamer, and that's the best way I can talk about him right now. And, he did not play well. He did get sacked 7 for 43 times, and his yards are even a little bit inflated because T. Higgins got away with the most obvious offensive pass interference call on the 75-yard reception, where you literally grabbed the face mask of Jalen Ramsey. We all saw it. Threw him down, caught the ball, went into the end zone, no flag, gifted a 75-yard touchdown. You take those 75 yards off, Joe Burrow sitting at around 190 yards throwing the ball with one touchdown. Just not a great game. Joe Mixon up there throwing the touchdown pass as well, a little surprise action. And the ugly head of the red zone kept creeping up in this playoffs for the Cincinnati Bengals. They just are not efficient in the red zone. That's when your offensive line really needs to dominate. And you can just tell they're so close. They get offensive linemen in Cincinnati. Watch out for the Bengals. They have a QB that is doing this well with no offensive line. I do think some of the sacks are on Joe Burrow. I'm not going to blame the offensive line for everything. He is a gamer, likes to extend plays, and still holds the ball a little bit too long for my liking. You see players like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, they'll do their reads real quick and throw the ball away. Joe Burrow needs to develop that. He's great when he extends plays and he gets out of some miraculous blitz packages, but in the grand scheme of things, he's going to get himself hurt, and he's not doing anyone justice taking those sacks. 7 sacks this game, 9 sacks against the Titans. He needs to get the ball out quicker. The game script needs to be developed to get the ball out quicker. I'd like to see more play action, and I have no idea what the hell is going on taking Joe Mixon out on 3rd and 4th down multiple times during that Super Bowl. He is one of your best offensive weapons on the team, and you're taking him out of the game to put Samaje Perine out on a critical down, and it's just ugly. It's just ugly football with that. Ugly play calling. Bengals did not play their best game. Make no doubt about it, the Rams did not play their best game either. They got very, very fortunate. OBJ, who, did the Browns dirty, in my opinion, got hurt, retore that ACL. It's going to be a long comeback. That's the second ACL in a year. It's going to be a hard comeback. I wish him nothing but the best, but it's going to be hard for him. He was tearing the Bengals up with those crossing routes. And Cooper Kupp doing Cooper Kupp things. It seems like he's always open. 8 for 92, 2 touchdowns. Dude, it's just unstoppable. He literally had the best wide receiver season of all time. He capped it off with a Triple Crown and a Super Bowl. Insane play. And the trade for Matthew Stafford, you can say what you want at this point. The trade worked out. The trade for Von Miller worked out. Everything works out when you win that Super Bowl. I was very, very, very surprised with their use of Darrell Henderson. That dude was getting targets out of the field. I thought it was going to be the Cam Akers show, and it was on the ground. Cam Akers, I'm just going to briefly touch on this. The dude, it's crazy that he came back so fast. It really is. Let's dig into Cam Akers' stats real quick after the comeback. I don't want to hate on the guy. I really don't. But I also want to be a realist. Okay? The dude comes back. He has 5 attempts for 3 yards. 0.6 average. Arizona, 17 for 55. 3.2 yards a carry. Tampa, 24 carries for 48 yards. 2 yards a carry. San Francisco again. 13 attempts. Sorry, excuse me. This was last year. No, this was this year. No, this was last year. Sorry. Let's start right here. 17 for 55, 3.2. Tampa, 24 for 48, 2.0. San Francisco, 13 for 48, 3.7. Cincinnati, 13 for 21, 1.6. The dude did not look explosive whatsoever compared to what he was. Is this a thing that he could keep battling back and getting better and better and better? I hope so, but he lost 2 fumbles. He was averaging 2.6 yards a carry in the playoffs with a long of 17. He did look good in the passing game where he looked explosive. I know he ran over that Arizona Cardinals defender hard as heck, and he looked like a beast at that point in time. But my man did not look that good. And, it's miraculous. We love these comeback stories. Hopefully he keeps getting that explosiveness back, but he definitely looked rusty, and he looked like he lost a step. So I'm still not on the Cam Akers train. It's miraculous he came back again, but he is definitely not what he was before at this point in time. I am not saying that he won't get there. I'm not saying that. But traditionally, I am a traditionalist. These players are not the same after an Achilles injury. So we really, 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 when we're talking in terms of fantasy football, need to look at these kind of stats, because if you are just looking at the media and, individuals talking about the Rams and how great it is that Cam Akers came back so quick, how miraculous it is, he honestly didn't look too good. So take that into account when you're trying to make trades this offseason. If you have Cam Akers on your team, it might be a perfect opportunity to flip him, because there's a potential, if you're looking at history of Achilles injuries, that he does not come back to form ever. I hope he does. I wish him nothing but the best, but I am relating everything back to the fantasy football world, and this is something to pay attention to, ladies and gentlemen. Cam Akers, if he's on my squad, I am trying to trade him and get whatever I can while the media is still hot on him, while he came back and didn't get hurt. Do your thing. Little advice in the fantasy football world. Someone else I want to talk about right now, and someone I love. I really do. And I'm not going to crap on Joe Burrow. But he was probably QB 10 to 14 before the season regarding, fantasy value in the dynasty world. And after the Super Bowl run, he shot up to, 4. I saw him as low as 4. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. I think Joe Burrow is one of those guys that is a much, much, much better actual quarterback than he is a fantasy football quarterback. And I think that, he's going to have those random games where he throws for 500 yards. We all saw it. But I think these stats right here, I had him in one of my leagues this year. This is pretty standard what I got. He didn't even score 20 points a game as a QB this year. He doesn't have much rushing upside after his ACL, and he takes a lot of hits, which makes him, in my opinion, injury prone. Sprained his MCL in the Super Bowl, limping around. Luckily, he's a gamer. I think he's a gamer. He is a proven winner, and he will find out ways to win football games. But in fantasy football world, let's pump the brakes, ladies and gentlemen. His QBR, 39, 54, 28, 62. He did not have that great of a playoff run. I'm just going to be flat out with you. He ended up throwing 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He had about a 97.3 QB rating for the postseason. Now, granted, I do know he's playing against the best of the best defenses. I don't want to discredit him. Like I said, I do think he's a gamer, and I think he's one of those prospects. They're just better in actual games than he is in fantasy football. Someone else I feel like that is Derek Carr. I think he's like that. I think I'm trying to think of another example. I think Drew Brees was like that. Drew Brees was a heck of an actual quarterback, but kind of lacked in the fantasy department because lack of rushing upside. Dink and dunk down the field. We'll take a shot every once in a while. But this is just my perspective. If Joe gets more comfortable in that knee and starts running a little bit, we don't need anything crazy. 300 to 500 yards on the season. I don't think that's that crazy. 200 to 500, somewhere in that range. I think that's realistic. How much did he have this season? I'm just curious. It was super, super minimal. So he had 118 yards on the whole season. I think if he can get that up to 200 to 300, then you're looking at, 10 to 15 more extra points all year, adding almost a point per game to his fantasy football stats. Then he's getting up to that 20 range. Then we can start talking. But I just wasn't super, super impressed with Joe Burrow. The thing about Joe Burrow this offseason that is just insane to see is how clutch he is. I know he didn't come out in the Rams and take it down the field, but I do think that was play calling. I think that was on Zach Taylor. I just want to see more development in the passing game, get the ball out faster. I think he has the upside to be a top 5 fantasy QB in the dynasty world, but let's pump the brakes right now. There's still 5 QBs. I know 100% I take over them when you're talking in regards to Mahomes, Allen, Herbert. I'd take Lamar. I would take Prescott. I'll take all these guys with rushing upside. Josh Allen. These guys before Joe Burrow right now. So let's pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. Reel it back in. This is called the Super Bowl bias. This happens every year. And, this young QB hits the Super Bowl. The next thing you know, they're trying to anoint him a top 5 dynasty QB. He's a top 5 dynasty QB in real life, but not in fantasy football. So, not trying to make anyone mad. I know a lot of Bengals fans probably agree with me, honestly. But they were anointing Joe Burrow a top 5 dynasty fantasy football QB, and I think we need to pump the brakes on that. Pump the brakes. And last but not least, let's continue just a little bit more. Let's talk about dynasty offseason. When you're talking about dynasty offseason, you are trying to make moves for your team that either A, put you in contention, or B, or you build for the future. I don't know what's going on here. So, just going to look at my team. Of course, I have trades and trades. You have to do a realistic analysis of your team. What I mean by that is, look at your team. Look at your weak spots. Identify those weak spots and either A, make the decision, am I going to go all in this year? Or B, am I building for the future? If you are building for the future, you take all the old veteran players on your team and you should try your best to trade them this offseason. Reasons you would go for the future. A, there's a stacked team in your league, which there are a couple in my league that makes me question what exactly I want to do. B, all your assets are getting older, and you know that if you keep trending in this direction, your window's going to close, and then you're getting no value for anybody, which I'm getting a little stuck in as well. Those are pretty much it, why you'd build for the future, honestly. Maybe you already have a plethora of draft picks and you just want to keep building those up. That's another reason. But yeah, make a egoless, yes, egoless, I'm making up words, distinction on your team. You are assessing your team and say, am I going to win this year? If that answer is anything but yes, you should start the rebuild. We are not playing for second place in Dynasty Leagues. We are either trying to win in 2 years or trying to win this year. Make the assessment and then go to your trades. And speaking of trades, one of the biggest problems, and I said this in previous videos back in the day, one of the biggest problems I think in Dynasty trades right now is everybody is using trade calculators. I am a hater on trade calculators. You have to realize that trade calculators are literally other people's opinion on players. Let me repeat that. They are other people's opinions on players. Everyone's going to have perceived value of players on your team. People are going to use trade calculators, A, to boost up their own players. They will find the correct trade calculator that says, for instance, Ronald Jones is worth blah, 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 when we all know that Ronald Jones is worth absolutely nothing right now, as of today on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They will find stuff to put down your players, such as Hopkins, who had a down season, but always has the potential to be a top 5 wide receiver the following year, as long as everything stays consistent in Arizona and he stays healthy. That's the first year he's been injured. They will find reasons to put down older players because the fantasy dynasty calculators are telling them to. Like I said, dynasty calculators are going to ruin trades in your guys' leagues. There's just no way about it. They're going to literally twist and turn people's minds against and for players, overvalue players on your own team, devalue players on your own team, devalue other players, and force you into some bad trades. You can go to Fantasy Pros, buy the subscription, and do Trade Finder, and some of the trades they recommend are absolutely horrendous. Another thing that trade calculators don't truly calculate is weighted need for a team. What I mean by that is, if you are weak at the tight end position, like let's say you're starting, I don't know, let's say, I don't even have an example. Let's say you're starting Hunter Henry as your tight end 1 in your league, and someone offers you a trade that includes an aging tight end like Travis Kelce or someone like that. Travis Kelce is worth a lot more to you, the Hunter Henry owner, than someone else who might have Kyle Pitts already on their roster. And trade calculators don't really account for that. Another thing it doesn't account for is situations such as you're strong at receiver. You have, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. You have T. Higgins. You have all these wide receiver 1s and 2s. But you're lacking running back. So you decide, hey, I'm going to try to trade Tyreek Hill for a running back. Maybe an aging running back that really wouldn't make sense like to most teams on an equal playing field. But that's not an equal playing field because you need a running back. Trade calculators don't have anything to do with maybe what your team actually needs. So that's my biggest problem with trade calculators. I understand, I've had the argument made to me that those people have jobs for a purpose as far as like making, value for people. And so maybe it's a good outlet. This is a final call. See that you're not getting completely ripped off in a professional's eyes. But I highly, highly suggest use those only as a crutch at the end. Make your own assessment on players. Add your own value to players. Make a chart of who you think's good, who you think's not good, where you would rate people along the way. And counter trades. Make good trades, because that's why Dynasty football is fun. If your team's not active in making trades, it does lose the lust in the season. So that's just something to think about when it comes to trade calculators. Comment below. Tell me what you think. I know I rambled a little bit there, but I had to get that off my chest because I've had a lot of trades get denied, and I just know that people are pumping that into their trade calculators. It's telling them, A, they're getting ripped off, when in reality, I don't think they are if you look at both teams. So think about that. And, yeah, counter trades, ladies and gentlemen. But we are actually going to get on the line with our special guest today. He is one half of the Legacy lineup, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Just came to YouTube and joined the YouTube crew. We're here with Jimmy Barnett, and we'll give him a call. We'll get him on the line. I did say, I talked about Jimmy's fanhood last time regarding, actively rooting against the Bengals, and how I couldn't really understand rooting against, the Bengals and the fan base when you share a similar love to the same city in baseball season. And I knew it just came down to, the Pittsburgh, Cincinnati rivals. And I should have prefaced this before I started talking about it. Jimmy actually talked about all this on his podcast before I even talked about it. So I didn't think it was like really, running my mouth or anything, because he already said all this publicly. So I was just kind of alluding to that, to be honest with you. So I needed to preface that before, but Jimmy's going to come on and explain why he thinks the way he does. And we're going to get into that right now. So Jimmy Barnett, give you a call, my friend. And here we are with James Ivan Barnett III. And he is one half of the Legacy lineup, just making their way to YouTube, the YouTube world. Jimmy, give me a little YouTube, man. Give me that YouTube greeting.
YouTube!
That's what I'm talking about, big man. Wanted to get you on the show because of my last podcast. You texted me, and I said this already before we got on the line. I should have premised before. The only reason I brought you up is because you talked about it on your own podcast. So it was already out there in the public to see. I would never bring up, friends on friends conversations. I guess it sounded like I was, and I didn't preface that. So I should have said that, because that's the only reason I was even alluding to it. So my question was, how can you be against the same fan base when you root for the same fan base in a different sport? And I guess we'll just start there.
Yeah, I think I'm one example of probably hundreds of thousands of people that don't root for the same team in the same city, or the same state for that instance. So for me, I was born and raised a Steelers fan. So, that's all I knew as far as football. Like I never, I watched the Bengals, I watched the Browns growing up, but it was always like Steelers were my team. My dad's a Steelers fan. Now my dad's a little different than I am. He will root for the Bengals. He will not root for the Browns. He does not like the Browns. So he's a little different than I am, which I always thought that was weird. So I can see why you thought why you think it's weird, and others do too, probably. But like, until you put yourself in the situation, I guess it's like one of those things. Like, it's funny. I mean, I get it. I'm the biggest Reds fan, probably. I mean, one of them.
The biggest.
And I hate the Bengals. And hate's a strong word. I don't like them. I wouldn't root for them to win the Super Bowl. I wouldn't root for Cleveland to win the Super Bowl. I wouldn't root for the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl. It's just one of those like division rivalry things. But as far as like same city, same fans, I think you could say that for a lot of the fans. I mean, I don't know what percentage of Bengals fans are Reds fans, but I know there's probably a big percentage of football fans that aren't baseball fans at all. So I guess for me, I'm not a Pirates fan. They're in the NL Central with the Reds. Mm-hmm. I don't root for the Pirates because I'm a Steelers fan. So I guess like a Steelers fan could say the same thing to me on the other side of the house. It just so happens I picked two teams that are in the same division in both sports. And it kind of, it does bring up that, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't root for the Pirates to win the World Series either, or the Cubs or the Brewers or the Cardinals. I wouldn't root for any of those teams. So for me, it's just more of how I was, just brought up and like a diehard Steelers fan kind of thing. Like, It's more of like my personal fandom.
Yeah, I guess I kind of alluded it before. I think it comes from probably we're in the Cincinnati area, so there's more Bengals fans around. I think that's probably where where your hate comes from, because that's where we're around the most.
And honestly, Luke, I would probably venture to say that there are, I wouldn't say as many Steelers fans in the state of Ohio as there are Bengals or Browns fans, but I can tell you this: there's a lot of them in the state of Ohio. I've been to a Bengals Browns game, or a Bengals Steelers game. I've been to Steelers Browns. I've been to both of their stadiums and at Pittsburgh. And it's pretty heavy Steelers fan base. Either they travel well or there's a lot of in-state, which it's not that far, but I do believe there's a lot of in-state.
I think they're a top 5 most traveled team for sure.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
See terrible towels everywhere.
Yeah, and I'm not a terrible towel guy. I don't carry one around and swing it above my head.
Yeah,
I think that's stupid. But again, I'd be shunned by Steelers Nation if they heard me say that. So
no, it's all good, man.
Hopefully you go national and they start getting mad at me.
Yeah, start commenting below. Comment below if you guys are watching this. Give me your thoughts on everything, because Jimmy just wanted to get on, explain his fanhood. Didn't even feel like he really had to. I kind of answered the question before I even asked. I think it comes to just our location and the stuff we hear, and it's a rivalry. It just sincerely is.
And that's the biggest thing, is it's a rivalry. I mean, growing up, Nick will watch this. Nick's one of our friends. One of the biggest Bengals fans I've known. I've known Nick since, I was probably in kindergarten or first grade. I've known Nick for a long time. I mean, we used to ride to basketball practice together when we were little. Same baseball teams. Our dads coached us in basketball and baseball and flag football. We were on the same teams. Nick was always a big Bengals fan, and I was always a big Steelers fan. And when you're little kids and you argue about that stuff, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But Nick kind of put me – he's the Bengals fan and he knows this. He's the Bengals fan that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But he's a big Bengals fan, and he stands with them through and through. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't like him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't dislike any of my friends because they root for a team. It's just simply, you and T-Scar, I've lived with you two. You guys give me so much crap over being a Steelers fan. If the Browns would beat the Steelers, I'm glad I didn't live with you like in the playoff era there last year. I would have took so much crap. And it is one of those things. I don't really have friends that are Steelers fans. So, I'm kind of alone in that battle. But it's just all in fun. I mean, I don't want people to think off my comments on the legacy lineup like, I don't wish bad things upon them or anything like that. It's just a rivalry thing.
So where do you think the Steelers are going to go at QB now?
Man, I have no idea. I was talking to Ren about this weekend. We watched UFC on Saturday, and I was chatting with him about it. And I just don't see. They like the quarterback from Liberty. I think it's Malik Willis or something. Is that how you say it? Wills or Willis or something like that. And I've watched some stuff on him. I mean, he is good, but again, he's like kind of in that same area that was Ben Roethlisberger was when he was drafted. You don't know based on the level of their competition how good they really are. The Steelers took a shot with Big Ben, and it paid off for 18 years.
Yeah.
You don't know if that's going to happen with this Malik guy. I mean, he looks good, but I don't know. To me, if he can't come in and start this year or next year, I wouldn't draft him. I would draft offensive line. I don't know where they're going to go with QB. I don't want Mason Rudolph, as you know. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Maybe Haskins, but is he kind of past his chance? I don't know.
That's a weird state.
They could trade. I'd take Derek Carr, but I feel like you'd have to give up the farm to get somebody like that. Aaron Rodgers, he's good, but he's old. I mean, it'd be basically like putting Big Ben back there, except for Aaron is a little more mobile and still has the big arm. So gotcha. I don't know.
So you obviously watched the Super Bowl. Give me your recap. What went wrong?
The Bengals need offensive line help, that's for sure. I think we all know that. I think Joe got hurt there. He played through it. Joe's a gamer, man. I love the dude. I don't root for him, but I like him as a player.
It's hard not to like him.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's hard not to like him. And, I can understand, I guess, from my point of view, I can understand why fans would root for the guy because I guess for me, my fandom of the Steelers outweighs my love for Joe Burrow because I like Joe in college. I rooted for him at LSU. But again, that's a program Ohio State never played much. So it was one of those things where, it wasn't like bad blood in the water or anything when he left Ohio State, But I think the Bengals Super Bowl, they had every opportunity to win that game, man. They did. And honestly, some bad calls down the stretch against the Bengals, but I will say on the front end of that, very bad calls against the Rams. They got away with one for a touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you can throw that stuff out there all you want. All fans will when their team loses the game. I do it as a Reds fan, as a Steelers fan. I do it. I mean, we can all do it. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's football, man. And the officiating, as we know, it has been bad for the last 4 or 5 years. It's getting worse with pass interference. I mean, you can not touch them anymore. It's not as aggressive. But, I don't know if I'm on that bandwagon yet that games are being thrown by officials.
Mm-mm.
I know BJ's on that bandwagon, and we've talked about it. It is weird. I will agree with that. It is weird how it happens, but I choose not to believe that it's happening because that would ruin the sport for me.
I know. It's hard, man, because it feels like they're trying to keep the game close. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and let's hope that they're not doing that. And if it comes out that they are, I'll be devastated, man. I won't be able to watch the sport anymore. So, I'm kind of getting that way with, not to get off topic, but baseball. They're trying to change the game. And you know me, baseball is what I love. I mean, it's my number one sport. And it's getting harder and harder for me to pay attention because to the overall game, not the Reds, but the overall game because of the rule changes, the robotic umpires, starting extra innings with a runner on second, stuff like that. Why are we trying to shorten a game that's meant to be played at a slow pace? I mean, I don't get it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. It's not a big deal. But I think they're losing more fans. But anyways, yeah, I agree, man. The Bengals game could have went either way. I'm glad it turned out the way it did, but
yeah, I definitely have a problem with people saying the officials caused the Bengals that game when they got gifted a touchdown. I mean, they literally got hand-delivered a touchdown that should not have counted. I mean, that was one of the most egregious offensive pass interferences I think I've ever seen. I know that.
Go ahead, man.
I know the official was not in the right position to see that. So
yeah, I honestly think that was the worst call I ever saw, and the whole false start by the Rams offensive line. Mm-hmm. Worst. I called that on the TV when that happened. I screamed. I have a habit of doing that, yelling false start. I did that, and they didn't call it. And then the Rams scored, I think, or they got closer, or pass interference or something. And I was like, "What the heck?" And then the next day, I see it on Twitter that the Rams. I think Nick retweeted it. I see that, and I'm like, I called that when it happened. I saw that as a fan. So, I don't know. It is weird. How did the officials miss the whole offensive line? Like I said, man, I'm like you. I choose not to believe right now. That's not to say in the future I won't. But right now,
the fact that there's no penalties until 2 minutes to go in the game, I think that's weird. That's weird, man.
It was. I agree. It is weird, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not complaining. I like the outcome. So. Yeah,
it was a great game. Great game to watch.
It was. It was a good game.
It's always questionable, man. That's a hard AFC road. We could see a Dan Marino type, career with Burrow where he never makes it back, and not because he's not a baller, but because eventually they're going to have to pay the man, and there's not going to be enough, skill positions to go around because of money. And then you're looking at Mahomes, Allen, Herbert. Yeah. You're looking at all these QBs coming up. It's scary, man. You don't know.
The AFC is scary, and what's even scarier is my team doesn't have a quarterback. So it's and I know you guys, Baker wasn't healthy this year, so I don't think it's a fair assessment on his career outlook yet. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I think Baker's a gamer. I'm not personally a fan of him, but I do think he's a gamer like Joe Burrow. The guy wants to win. Now, he's not Joe Burrow.
He's not. Joe Burrow's too smart. He's really smart.
Yeah. Joe Burrow he's a once-in-a-generation style quarterback. I mean, he is. He's the best quarterback. He is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, in my opinion. And I mean,
I was just talking about that. I was just saying, and he is, in my opinion, because I relate everything back to fantasy football, he is a way better real-life quarterback than he is fantasy quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean there. I feel like Tom Brady was like that at times in his
Drew
in
Brees
fantasy.
Was a great They're
I agree,
they're
man.
gamers, man. They're going to win games, but they're, as far as fantasy numbers, they're not going to put up 100 yards rushing or something crazy.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, the Cincinnati Bengals organization, and I know their fans they have to know this because all their fans tweet about it and put it on social media. They have got to get that guy some offensive line help or he's going to get killed. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is too good to sit back here and take that many sacks in a game. How many times did he get sacked in the Super Bowl?
7 times.
7 times in the Super Bowl. That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
That should not happen. I don't care how good the Rams defense is. You know, those guys are getting paid millions of dollars. Like, I'd be finding somebody that could block for this guy because he's the kind of quarterback every team in the NFL wants, and I think would replace their starter with it, you know, at his age and everything. So if I'm a Bengals fan, man,
and
I want no.
A little bit on play calling too. Get the ball out faster. Run some screens. They didn't run any screens.
And not having Joe Mixon in the game, questionable. I don't know. I mean, I'm not paid to make those decisions, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I know more than Zach Taylor or any of their coordinators or coaches. But, Joe Mixon was awesome for me in fantasy, so I know he can put up points.
Yeah, and if he's not – I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Unless he was hurt. I mean, I guess he could have been battling something. Who knows? But
I agree, bro.
But anything else going on this week or weekend?
No, man, not much going on. Just getting back. I was off today, so President's Day. So just getting back into it. I think March Madness starts up here in a few weeks, so that'll be fun. But getting ready for fantasy football. I know you and I have been going back and forth on the trade block already, just messing around.
I've been rapid-fire trades out there, man. That's all I do. I think I'd have like 7 out in Dynasty 2 and 6 or 7 out in Dynasty 1.
I know it's football season when Paulie's sending me trades. So.
Yep, it's coming, man. I still don't know what's going on with Sleeper, though. I don't know how to get it to add players yet. It's weird. I need to figure that out. Yeah,
mine's showing like 4 notifications, and I'm trying to find them in there, and I can't find them. I don't know. It's like the app's not updated yet or something.
Super weird, too. I think it's going to take a second. But hopefully we get that figured out. Sleeper, if you guys watch this, drop a comment below because I need to figure this out, too. And as a commissioner, I want these guys to be able to add players already. It feels like they can't. So get on top of that. Birthday weekend, Jim. Hopefully I see you here Saturday. Merity ruined the surprise. So.
Oh, I wasn't going to bring it up. Yeah, I'll be there, man. Me and Molly will be there. I think Molly texted Meredith. I don't know. You know, with Jackson, I don't know that we'll stay. I'm not sure if we thought about bringing him so people can meet him because I want all you guys to meet him and stuff. I know you've met him and a few others have, but we thought about bringing him. You know, he'll sleep most of the time, so. I don't know yet what's going to happen. She's going to talk to Meredith. But regardless, I will be there.
So. I'm pumped up for that. Meredith did a heck of a job. She organizing this, so I'm really excited. But
yeah,
I'll see you this weekend. Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Football Perspective. Check out Jimmy's podcast on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Legacy lineup, baby. Have a good day, guys. Peace. See you, Jim.
See you, man.